guys, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If this is your first time being here, then welcome. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate all of you. Today we're going to be looking at whether my 5-star predictions that I made back in January were actually right or not. So, like I said, back in January, I made some predictions based on books that I thought were going to be 5 stars. They were all books that I were really looking forward to reading, and they were books that I were planning to read throughout the first 4 months of 2021, so January through to April. I've read all of those books, and it was very interesting to see which ones were 5 stars and which ones weren't. So I will link that video somewhere if you want to go and watch it before you carry on with this one. And without further ado, we're going to get straight into the books. So the first one that I have here is Leave the World Behind by Rumana Lam. And this was one of my most anticipated books for the end of 2020. It came out around like October, November time last year. A lot of people were really hyping this book up. It sounded like something that I was really going to enjoy. It's about this family who go on vacation. They live in New York, but they've gone on vacation outside of New York. And then one night, a couple knock on the door and they explain that New York is in the middle of a communications blackout, and there's no power or internet as well or anything like that, and can they come and stay in the house with them? Oh, that scared me. So can they come and stay in the house with them? And it was a really interesting plot, just not executed very well. And in the end, I ended up giving this book 2 stars, which is one of my lowest rated books of the year. And I really didn't want to feel that strongly about it. I wanted to be really positive about it, but this book bored me. Like, it really didn't do anything for me. And I think one of the main reasons why is because it is literary fiction, and I don't do well with literary fiction. Some I do, but it really depends. And the way this book was written just didn't work for me at all. I couldn't get into it. There is an entire chapter on like this woman buying stuff in the supermarket, and he literally lists out word for word everything that she buys, and it goes on for ages, and I hated that. And the way this book ended, I mean, it was really speculative, and I kind of get that the reader is supposed to make up their own mind about things. But with this kind of plot, I just feel like that didn't work, and I was really, really confused. There were moments of tension where I thought things were going to get really juicy, and then it just fell really flat. And overall, I was just left very dumbfounded and very disappointed by this book. And the only thing that really redeemed it and stopped it from being a 1 star was that there was some beautiful passages in it. Like, the writing didn't work for me, but at times there was some writing, like some quotes and things that just really stood out to me that I really did like. And the plot, the concept, like, it was really, really interesting, and it was enough to make me finish the book. So it wasn't for me, unfortunately. But if you like literary fiction and you like the idea of a communications blackout and seeing how 2 very different couples deal with that, you might like this. Next we have Birthday by Meredith Russo, and if you watched my most recent video, my April wrap-up video, you will know that I didn't give this book a rating. So This book is all about two young teenagers who are best friends. Their families have been best friends since they were born. They were born on the same day. That's how their parents met. And so we are following them on their birthday every year, from the ages of 12 up until 18. So there's a 6-year span where we see how their relationship develops and changes over time, and how they develop and change as people. And Eric and Morgan are two very different teenagers. Eric is obsessed with football, and people think that he is going to be this football superstar. You know, he's going for a football scholarship, but as he gets older he kind of realizes that maybe that's not what he wants to do, so he is dealing with that. And then we've got Morgan, who realizes very early on actually that she doesn't feel like a boy, she actually feels like a girl. And so we are kind of seeing how she deals with that as she gets older, how she comes out to people, and we get to see her transition towards the end. And it was a really beautiful story. I absolutely loved it. However, the thing that's conflicting me is that when I was reading this book, I became aware of the author's past and their behaviour in the past. If you want to know what it is, you can go and Google it. I'm not going to go into it on video, but it is there. Like, if you search their name, it comes up. And yeah, that just kind of ruined it a little bit for me. Now, I am a big believer in that everybody's voices should be heard. The author is a trans woman, and this book does talk about, you know, a very real topic for a lot of people out there, and I do think it is a very important read. And so I don't want to say to people that they shouldn't read this book just because of something the author did in the past. Especially when this author is a trans woman, and, you know, people in the trans community aren't having the easiest of times right now. I want them to have their voices heard and for people to know their stories. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I support the author 100%, and I just didn't feel comfortable giving this book a rating knowing that. So it's totally up to you whether you want to read this book or not. You can research it, you don't have to research it, whatever you want to do, but, you know, that information is out there if you want to go and find it, and you can make up your own mind on whether you want to read this book or not, because it was a beautiful book. It just happened to work out the way it did, unfortunately. So next I'm going to talk about Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas, and this is the prequel to The Hate U Give, which was absolutely amazing. I love that book, and that book was a 5-star read for me last year. Concrete Rose follows Star's father, Maverick, as he is dealing with exams in school, and he also finds out that he is going to be a father. He's also got people from the gangs in Garden Heights on his back, and so we're kind of seeing as he juggles all of those things while trying to be a dad to his new son, Seven. And I really like Angie Thomas's writing. I think she does a really good job at creating such interesting and believable characters that just leap off the page. And the way she writes her families, the dynamics between families in her books, is always such a joy to read. I love Maverick's banter with his mum in this book. They had such great back and forth with each other, and it was delightful. And it is raining really heavy right now. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm really sorry. We're just gonna try and ignore it, but what was I saying? Yes, so I really enjoyed reading about his relationship with his mother, and seeing him juggle all of these new obstacles that are in his way. And I really, really loved Maverick. I was really rooting for him the entire time. This book also deals with gun violence, and there are some very heavy and very triggering moments in this book, so please be cautious of that. But I only gave this book 4 stars in the end because I didn't feel that it was as strong as The Hate U Give. It didn't impact me as much as The Hate U Give did. But it was still a very insightful and very emotional read. And overall, I still really enjoyed this book. And then next we have got Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So this is a book that I have been holding off reading for quite some time just because loads of people love this book. Like, this book is so well loved. I haven't come across anybody who doesn't like this book. And just that kind of like expectations of it just really intimidated me. But I gave it a go in March and I really, really loved this book. So this one is all about the first son of America, so the President of America's son, Alex, and Prince Henry, who is the Prince of England. And at the start of the book, they don't like each other, and they get into a bit of a tiff, as we say in Britain, and it gets picked up by the media, and so the American government and the British palace come to an agreement that the two of them are going to have like a fake friendship in order to repair US and UK political relations and things like that. They don't have to like each other, they just have to pretend. But in the end, it turns out that they both actually do like each other and they develop a romantic relationship with each other. And it was so much fun. The only reason why I rated this book 4 stars and not 5 was because I felt like we didn't get enough hate in the beginning. Like, they went from hating each other to loving each other very quickly, in my opinion. And I would have liked a little bit more tension, a little bit more of the hating stuff. But overall, really, really enjoyed this book. I loved the sex scenes. Like, they weren't too graphic, but they were still steamy enough to get you blushing and like hiding what you're reading from your partner. But I love the characters overall. I especially loved all of the side characters. I loved Alex's sister, Alex's friends. They really added a very different kind of side to the story. I loved the representation of bisexuality in the book as well. It's not something that I have read a lot of at the moment, so I've been looking for more of that. And yeah, it was just different and it was exciting. I thought it was young adult, but it's not. It's definitely new adult. But don't let that deter you. It was still a joy to read, and I loved how it was written in like, some of it was written in like text and email format as well, which personalised the story to the characters a little bit more. And yeah, I would 100% recommend this book. It just needed a bit more hating, in my opinion. Next we have Beneath the Sugar Sky and In an Absent Dream, both by Seanan McGuire. So these are books 3 and 4 in the Wayward Children series. The first 2 books, Every Heart a Doorway and Down Among the Sticks and Bones, were both 5-star reads for me. I absolutely loved them. So I was fully expecting these books to be 5 stars as well, but in the end we ended up with a 3-star and a 4-star, which, you know, isn't terrible. 3 and 4 is still a really good rating in my opinion, but they just didn't live up to the expectations that I had for them, and they just didn't have that oomph, you know, that magical oomph that I was looking for. So the Wayward Children series is a series all about these children who have gone through doors that open up into different worlds, and these worlds could be anything, like a world made of cakes, or a magical world or a dark world. It could be anything. It could be logical, it could be nonsense. Like, there is a whole variety of different things going on. They are primarily dark fantasy, but they read like grim fairy tales, and I love that aspect of the books. And I do think they are written really, really well. There's something so lyrical about the writing, and just so magical. And I think if I was reading these when I was a kid, I would have absolutely devoured them. I mean, I still devoured them anyway, but I would have absolutely loved them when I was a kid, because this was the kind of shit that I was into. But yeah, this one follows a character who ends up in a world made of confection, made of like sweets and cakes, which made me really hungry, which was kind of annoying, but I also loved it. But it just didn't have the oomph for me, and it did feel quite underwhelming compared to the other two. Like, not much seemed to happen in this one, and sometimes I was a little bit confused as to what was going on. And then in this one, it follows a girl who ends up in a place called the Goblin Market, and it kind of teaches her about fair value and how you should treat each other's fairly, and how value differs between like different people, and how people, you know, will value one thing more than another thing, while you would say, well, that's not worth anything, that kind of thing. And I really liked the morals behind the story. And this one has a crazy plot of like, if you get into debt, if you don't do your fair value, you turn into a bird. So that was quite cool. But again, it just felt like it was missing something. It just didn't have the wow factor that the other two books did. But having said that, they were both still really fun reads, and I would still highly recommend the series. I still have more books in the series to read, which I'm really looking forward to. So yeah. Alright, so we're on to the penultimate book on this list, which is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I won't talk about this book too much because I have done a vlog on it. I will link that up there if you want to go and have a look. And I also did talk about this in my previous video. But this one ended up being 4 stars in the end, just because Stephen King spoiled his plots in this book. Like, he told me what was going to happen a few chapters before it happened, and that just kind of ruined the shock value. Like, there was no shock value in the end for me, and it annoyed me pretty much. And also there were some times in this book when I was just skimming over passages because I was bored. Like, I wanted to get to the good stuff, and Stephen King went off on a bit of a tangent at times, and I was like, come on mate, get to the bloody point. But having said that, really, really good book. Great atmosphere, really dark, really broody. Sometimes it read like a ghost story, you know, like being in the woods and there is this thick fog and there are creepy sounds, and it was really tense at times. The last like third of this book was really intense, and it could have gone any which way, and it definitely went in a direction that I was not expecting it to go, and it was a really creepy idea, and I loved it. And I loved how, even though it is a horror story, at the heart of the book there is this discussion about life and death and grief and how that affects people in a variety of different ways, and what you would do if you were overcome with grief. And it's kind of questioning, you know, like what is right and wrong and stuff like that, which I really, really loved. Great book, great spooky read, definitely worth it. Not sure about the creepy cat because I love cats, but this book definitely put me off cats a little bit because it was just a bit weird and a bit like, oh, I couldn't read it at night. But what more could you want from Stephen King? So go and read this book if you want to. If you want to have an existential crisis, this is the book for you. If you don't want that, this is not the book for you. Alright, so we're on to the last book, guys, and If you watch my videos regularly, if you follow me on Twitter and Instagram, you will probably know what book I am gonna hold up, because this is probably my favourite book of 2021 so far. Nothing has come close to it. It's a book that I have been highly anticipating for a while. I finally read it back in January, and I absolutely loved it. And that was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Matt Haig is one of my favourite authors, if not my favourite author. I have rated several of his books 5 stars now. I think this is the 3rd or 4th book of his that I've rated 5 stars. And I just absolutely loved this book so much. Oh my gosh, like even now, I can't stop thinking about it, and I am trying to squeeze in a reread of this, but it just doesn't seem to be happening right now, but I will get there eventually. This book follows Nora, and she is struggling with her mental health. So there are a lot of trigger warnings here for mentions of depression and mental health and suicide. And one night she decides that she is going to take her own life. So she swallows a bunch of pills and she ends up in the Midnight Library. So the Midnight Library is this place. It's kind of like limbo, you know, it's the space between life and death. And she ends up there and she meets this librarian, and this library has an infinite amount of books that have an infinite amount of versions of your life. And she gets shown like different versions of her life, how it could have turned out if things had been done differently. And I loved the message that this book just sends people. It just kind of tells you to appreciate what you have and stop worrying about things that you can't change, and just enjoy the little things in life. That is what I got from it anyway. And as someone who struggles with their mental health, like I am struggling with anxiety right now, like this is definitely a book that I really related to. It was definitely very emotional, and there was just so many scenes in it that I absolutely adored. Like I wouldn't say that this book was unpredictable, because there were a few things in it that I did see coming, but they kind of made sense and it flowed really well. It just felt like the book was progressing in a natural way, and I loved how it ended. It actually ended on a very happy note, which just warmed my heart. And I can't find anything wrong with this book. Like I have seen some people say that they didn't like this, and I'm just like, how did you not like it? But you know, that's their opinion. Mine is that it was absolutely amazing and that you should all go and read it. Okay, so those are all of my 5-star predictions for the first third of 2021, and that is how it all panned out for those books. I love doing these prediction videos, so I will have another one coming up in the next week or so about my 5-star predictions for the next 4 months of 2021. I have some books that I'm really excited to read and that I feel like are gonna be 5 stars, so I can't wait for you guys to see that. And yeah, I am gonna wrap this video up here. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to leave any comments down below. Let me know if you read any of these books and what you thought of them, whether you agree with me or not. Were they 5 stars for you or were they 1 stars? Let's get some controversy going, why not? Please leave a cheeky thumbs up if you like this video, and please subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos from me in the future, and I will see you all in my next video very soon. Bye guys.